Hi, and welcome to a special video where today I'm going to be playing catch up on some tallies. So, a while ago someone in the chat suggested to me that I should do a tally of every time someone is saved from a ridiculous situation, and that situation was a vehicle with more than enough stopping distance to come to a halt, or just the whole situation was so ridiculous that it was impossible to hit someone that was in the middle of the road but still needed to be saved from someone else. Impossible situations like that was to tally up. Now, given that it got to about early season 2, nothing else happened of that caliber. And so I started wondering what it'd be like if I was to do a tally of all the times someone needed saving and who had to save them, as well as when people got knocked out. And after I've done this video and the second part, which will be for season 2, I will be doing this as I react to each episode going forward in season 3. Now, waffling done with, rules, as I figured that's one thing that's got to be clear, because going through these episodes and the saves can quite vary and become quite questionable, as well as could also become very confusing. So I established some rules which I will use for each and every single save. Now, the rules. The hero damsel meter only applies to named individuals within the show. That means if someone gets saved but their name is never mentioned, it doesn't count. Now, on that note, any big acts of world saves at this time, I'm not going to conclude. Now, on that same note, saving the world. I'm not going to be including that in the tally because after watching 2 seasons of Buffy the Vampire Slayer, I can see very clearly that Buffy is probably going to be the big hero at the end of the day, doing the final act to save the world. So I would count the individual acts themselves, but not the acts that count towards saving the world. We all know Buffy's the big hero. She saved the world twice at this point. It is who is the biggest hero of all the little saves. And second rule, the hero damsel meter is just 1 point per name. So, if Buffy has to save a group of people, for example, I remember one episode when you have Cordelia, Jenny, Giles, and Willow all hanging upside down, that is 1 save for Buffy. All 4 of them get 1 point for being a damsel in distress, but Buffy gets 1 point. It's not 1 point per save because it's 1 heroic act. And of course, Buffy wasn't alone that time, which brings me into another rule of assistance. Anyone that's part of a plan to save or help also gets a hero point. So Angel and Xander also helped in that same situation, so they would get a point. So the hero damsel meter points. So a damsel would have had to died, been injured, would have been captured, or actually captured to actually count as a damsel. And they would have had to have not been in a position to be able to rescue themselves. For example, there was an episode where Buffy and Cordelia both got captured and they were tied up and they were going to be a sacrifice to a big snake thing, if you guys remember. Buffy freed herself, so she doesn't get a damsel distress point because she freed herself. However, Cordelia still needed saving. So that brings me on to my 5th rule, self-saves. No points on either meter. Regardless of how long they were captured for, they saved themselves. Now for the 3rd tally is the knockouts. And that is going to be anything where any individual was otherwise capacitated for any given amount of time. So if they appear on the ground with their eyes closed, not moving, for even a couple seconds, that counts as being a knocked out. And in one case, which I'm making a special exemption for, as you will see in season 2, where the person got hit on the head but completely disappeared from camera angle where they should have been laying. That I'm also going to count as a knockout, and you'll see that in the part 2, season 2. So, with my probably very lengthy intro out the way, let's get into this, the first save. So for our very first save brings us to episode 1. Now, for the first save, as you can see, we have Willow that has been captured by a vampire after being told to seize the moment by Buffy. And we also have Jessie, who was also captured by Darla. Both of these two were going to become a meal for the Master, even after Darla's already had a snack. Buffy has come to the rescue with the aid of Xander to get these 2 out at the end of this first episode. Buffy's busy taking care of the vampires. Xander's the one that helped get him out, so he does get an assist bonus for the hero meter. And this is the only save of episode 1. Now diving into episode 2, where we get a few more saves, as we get a couple little saves at the beginning, as Xander didn't get everyone out. So we have Willow first getting saved by Buffy again, that was pinned down by a vampire. Then we also have Xander, who appears to have been knocked unconscious and then saved again by Buffy. Both these saves happen so close together. It is a blink and you miss it kind of save. Now, the next few saves doesn't happen until the end of the episode. This time, we have the whole of the Bronx being held captive. But of course, we don't know the names of any of these individuals. And I'm not even seeing any and I'm looking really closely now anyway as I speak, and I can't see any faces amongst this crowd that instantly stand out to me of all the faces I've seen for the past 2 seasons. So with that being said, literally the only named face that I could see in all this crowd is Cordelia that's in danger. Everyone else is just named as extras. So as the rules state, so when the vampires take over the Bronx, the only person that is going to get a damsel distress point is Cordelia, and the only person that's going to get a hero point is Buffy. Yes, the others have come, but given the situation and circumstances, they didn't have any direct influence in saving Cordelia. Her life was at immediate danger. Buffy immediately saves Cordelia just by her presence, and Adam literally lets her go just to fight him directly. Our next save comes with Xander being captured by a vampire. Buffy acts really quickly and decapitates the vampire, probably one of the coolest vampire deaths yet, and saves Xander's life. Next save comes in the form of Cordelia again, but this time, Xander's the hero. And here's our next save. Giles, being attacked by Darla, and Willow came to the rescue. What a save, Willow. We are getting some really good names on this list already. And here's our final save of episode 2. Xander getting kidnapped by 2 vampires, and just by a look, the vampires run away from Buffy. Just from a look. Such a badass moment for Buffy there. Now, diving into episode 3. So our first save comes in the form of a new character, Amber. Her name's mentioned, so she gets added to this list. And she's clearly got some witch spell that set her on fire. Buffy acts really quick to get a curtain or a banner of some kind and use that to extinguish the fire. Very quick acting, Buffy. Good save. Now our next save is the save that started this whole tally. This is the save where I got a suggestion to keep track of every ridiculous save that requires someone to be saved from a vehicle that's stupidly far away. It's by far the most ridiculous save that's needed to happen out of the first 2 seasons. Cordelia finds herself on the main road and Buffy came to the rescue. Anyway, our next save. This next save is some kind of curse that's been put on Buffy. It's really, I don't know, it's dialed her up to 1,000% or something. I don't know really the logistics of what's going on with this curse. But Buffy's been dialed up to 1,000. Her body's in overdrive. She's just risked hurt someone. She threw someone like a mile away and she looks like she sprained her ankle. But now Buffy, meanwhile, while Buffy's incapacitated with a curse, we also learn that Buffy is not the only one that needs saving this episode. Now it also turns out Amy herself also needs saving, as her mum has possessed and captured her body and controlling all the cards. She swapped bodies with Amy and literally stolen Amy's life. So now we got 2 saves at the same time. And who's going to come to the rescue? None other than Giles. Buffy became also knocked out by the Witch's curse in the end, so therefore that rendered her unconscious. Just in the nick of time, Giles, with one single act that saved Buffy twice and Amy once. However, not long after, he seems to get himself knocked out. Episode 4. In this one, we have 2 people that are damsels in this one, and we also have 1 knockout. Now, unfortunately, because we didn't see the details of Blaine's capture, we don't know if he was knocked out or not, so I can't count him as a knockout. But, as we see, Xander's lured by this praying mantis back to the home and spiked. Knocked out, passed out. Yes, he wasn't hit on the head, but he was intoxicated, and that knocked him out, so that still counts as a knockout. Now, obviously, we don't know if that was the same approach used for Blaine or not, because it was off-screen, so we cannot count Blaine's method of capture. For all we know, she could have just tied him up and thrown him downstairs straight away, whilst he was conscious the whole time. We have no idea on the details and logistics of Blaine's capture, but we do know that both Blaine and Xander were both captured, so both damsels in distress. Now, who come to the rescue? None other than Buffy, Willow, and Giles. Now, obviously, Willow and Giles are more in the assistance category of things for this save, but they still came and assisted, and they helped get Xander and Blaine out of harm's way. Now, in this next episode, we get all the saves come at the very end of the episode. Now, this is where the first knockout happens. As Vampire throws Buffy, she looks completely motionless, and she stays in that position for, as you can see, quite some time. Giles is there, he defends, but he uses the cross to delay. He saved Buffy. That's a save. But he got himself knocked out in this meanwhile as well. Here we go. Owen saving Buffy, and Buffy again getting knocked out. Owen saves himself. I mean, fair play. Owen gets himself knocked out, and now Buffy decides to go all out and kill Vampire. Now, episode 6, where we get a couple unlikely saves. Now, the first save comes in the form of Lance needing saving from a few bullies. Obviously, things were slowly starting to escalate before Professor Flute comes in for the save. Now, of course, we don't know what could have happened, but when bullies are involved, you never know what could happen. So Flute intervened and saved them from bullying. I'm not going to lie, I'm going to give that as a count as a win, just as an honourable point to Professor Flute. May he rest in peace. Lance, thinking he's gained favour with these bullies, decides to go with him. Little does he know, he's leading himself into another situation of need and saving. This is where Xander comes in, just in the nick of time before he gets thrown in with the hyenas, and you know what? Guess what? He saves Lance, biggest damsel of distress of this episode, I think, Lance. Anyway, in the process of doing that, he ends up getting himself possessed by hyenas with Kyle and the rest of the pack. Now, of course, I think now's the point to mention, when it comes to referring to the pack, yes, I'm referring to all 5 of them. However, given that only Xander and Kyle have names that are mentioned within this episode alone, it's only those 2 getting the points for being a damsel in distress. Now, this next one I should mention. Obviously, Xander gets knocked out in a minute. However, I don't think this one should count, given he's technically possessed. It's not him, as it wouldn't be fair, he's not himself. Now, this next save comes in the form of Willow needing saving. Just as everyone believes she successfully saved herself by hiding after she got away from the pack initially, she's tricked into thinking she saved herself. The door gets shut, but they never left the room. They're still there. Here she is, trapped, cornered. Buffy saves her. Given that the other pack members weren't far behind when they did come to the rescue, this is a situation Willow would have not got out herself if it hadn't been for Buffy. And yes, I know Giles didn't really do anything in this instance, but he was with Buffy, so it does count as an assist, regardless of how little he did. This next save, Buffy does get a point for leading them to the designated spot where they're going to get the spirits possessing them extracted. So she does get an assist point later. And this is where we get our next knockout. Dr. Warwick knocks Giles out. And then the next thing that happens is Willow gets taken hostage by Dr. Warwick himself, whilst he's casting the spell and ritual that's going to strip the hyena spirits out of the pack. Now, this is the funny bit. He technically gets a hero point for saving the pack. And here's a surprise. Buffy also got saved by Dr. Warwick as she was about to be ripped to pieces by the pack. So he saved them. Yes, he had ulterior motives for saving them, but he still saves them. He takes the spirits out of them. Now, the next thing that happens, attempting to kill Willow straight away, Xander lunges into action and saves Willow. Now that we're at the halfway point, let's take a quick look at what we got. Now, we got a clear landslide victory for who is the biggest saviour. No surprise, Buffy. But what is interesting to see is Xander and Giles in a close second place at this moment in time. It's good to see Xander and Giles in a close second place, as well as the biggest damsel also being Xander and Buffy, Willow being in a very close second place. And what is interesting to me is we got a very close call so far on the scoreboard of who's been knocked out the most, with Buffy and Giles being knocked out 3 times so far, and Xander being knocked out twice themselves. We're kicking off the second half of this episode with episode 7. We get a couple of new names added to this list this time, and it actually starts off with Buffy needing saving. And who comes to the rescue? None other than Angel. But in the process of saving Buffy, he gets injured himself, and this is when Buffy ends up saving Angel. They saved each other in a way, so they both get a point on both categories. Now, this next point comes in very big surprise, as, funny enough, Buffy saves Angel without even realising it, and nor did we at this moment in time in the show. But by that one simple act of saying, Angel come in, or whatever her exact words were, her inviting Angel in literally saved Angel's life. Now, this next thing that happens is actually Joyce's first entry on this list, and that is in the form of a knockout. Anyway, this next form is Dahlia knocks Joyce out by draining them too much blood. Now, this next entry is a very sinister plot, as that she knew Angel was lurking about, and she staged this whole thing to get Angel inside the building, so he would be the one that guilty for Joyce's situation. This this whole setup doesn't scream Darla went there with the intention on killing Joyce. As if Darla wanted to finish her, she very easily could have done in this moment in time, but instead she gives the unconscious body of Joyce to Angel. Angel done almost nothing in this instant other than look there, fighting his vampire urges of wanting blood. Buffy comes in just at the wrong moment to see this, and then all hell breaks loose. But thankfully, Buffy did act very quickly and call the paramedics and save Joyce. Now, this next one, after a bit of an intense match-up with Darla with a pair of handguns that seem to have unlimited ammo, Buffy seems quite outmatched here. But nevertheless, in this dire situation that seemed almost outmatched by Buffy, Angel came through and saved her. Now on to episode 8. And this is quite a bit more of a packed episode when it comes to our hero, damsel and KO list. Let's dive into it, shall we? Now, the first save comes from a very unlikely person. Dave saves Buffy from the electricity in the shower. And it looks like it could have been quite a high voltage looking at those boots, so she must have came through just in the nick of time. Now, for this episode, after that save anyway, it gets a little bit confusing later on. So, first we have Willow that gets kidnapped. So she gets knocked out and kidnapped. Now the next thing that happens, in Buffy's and Xander's attempt to rescue Willow, they get captured themselves and gassed. While Buffy clings on to her last remaining breaths, it is very visible that Xander is in fact knocked out. Whilst Willow is clearly a hostage, and in a way so is Buffy and Xander, Giles and Jenny come through and strip Malik out of the internet and traps him in his still-like body, therefore saving Willow and Buffy and Xander at the same time. But ultimately at the same time, Buffy and Xander also get a point for coming to Willow's aid, as even if Malik got stripped out of the internet, he was still all-powerful in his still-like body, and therefore did need intervening from Buffy and Xander to come and save Willow. Whilst on the escape from Malik, Xander gets himself knocked out. Surprise, surprise. Buffy is powerless against this meta-robotic monstrosity. Willow saves her. She gets knocked to the side, but she doesn't get knocked unconscious. But it doesn't change with Willow still saving Buffy with a fire extinguisher, so well done, Willow. So we're in the final four now. Is this list looking like what you thought it'd look like? Obviously, yeah. Obviously for Buffy on the save side of things, definitely. So next we're diving into one of my favourite from this season 1, which was episode 9, Sid the Dummy. Now the first thing comes in the form of Buffy getting knocked out. As you can see, she's completely unconscious and motionless until right about now. She got knocked out, I'm afraid. Now the next save comes in the form of Giles. He's restrained without himself knowing. For a smart guy, I mean, would you really allow such a thing? I mean, I suppose he thinks it's a magic trick, but God. And isn't he lucky that's a blunt knife? Or axe. But anyway, to his rescue we have Buffy, Xander and Willow. Well, Buffy takes care of the big demons. Willow and Xander proceed to getting them out of trouble. The next damsel seems to be Buffy. Demons overpowering her, but guess who comes to the rescue? Sid. Now, despite it doesn't look like he's doing that much, he's clearly attempting to stab the demon with poor makeup effects of its time. Obviously, season 2 had a bigger budget. So I'm going to count that as a save from Sid. So, well done, Sid. And obviously, Sid is the one that actually finishes the demon off, as apparently losing its head isn't enough. It has to be the heart. Well done, Sid. Now, episode 10 is quite an interesting one, because it's mostly people saving themselves from their fears and just them facing their fears. The main victim of this saves himself at the end of it, as it's his fears that's manifesting itself into the real world. All the people that did get hurt didn't get saved from anything. Buffy got vampirized and no one saved her from being a vampire. So this one is an episode where there isn't any damsels or heroes or people getting knocked out. The only close call I could suggest is Buffy, as we don't see anyone unconscious at any point. The rule was we have to see them unconscious. Buffy gets buried. She's alive inside that coffin the last time we see her, and then the next time we see her, she's digged her way out of the coffin, which I can't imagine that being an easy, quick thing to do. So we don't see anyone unconscious. I mean, yes, we see Buffy fight the demon thingy, but everyone's running away from every situation that they're not really trapped in. I mean, I guess to an extent you could maybe argue assisted in Billy's own saving, but he faced a demon himself. Episode 10 is the one episode where I don't think there is any point needed to go anywhere. Obviously, you think Buffy deserves a point for assisting Billy. You'd have to let me know on that one in the comments below, and I will incorporate that into the tally. And that point will just appear because by the time I finish editing this and posted this, I would have already recorded the second part of this for season 2. So you guys are just gonna have to let me know on this episode, and it just automatically appear in a season 3 episode. Now, next up, we have a KO heavy episode. We get the Invisible Girl episode where Cordelia completely neglected a friend and she takes revenge. Now, the first one is a KO in the form of being completely whacked out unconscious by a bat. That's the iconic back to the face scene that is quite a big hint that that person got knocked out. Lights went out. That scene is interpreted as that Mitch got knocked out. Lights went out. We were seeing the bat attack him through his perspective back then. Through his perspective, and the bat hit him and it went all black. So he got knocked unconscious. Next up, we have Miss Miller. Quite an unfortunate attack for her, but she gets suffocated to an unconscious state. But very fortunately for her, Cordelia comes in and saves her just in the nick of time. That could have suffocated her to death. Cordelia's first entry onto the hero side of things. What a hero. Just in time. Now next is towards the end of the episode where quite a lot goes on. Giles, Willow and Xander gets lured into a trap, where there's a little gas trap to render them all unconscious waiting till the unfold. Whilst down there, they get themselves trapped in, and they all get knocked unconscious. Meanwhile, Buffy standing guard, Cordelia manages to get herself captured. Buffy attempts to come to the rescue, and she attempts to rescue and jump straight into pursuit of rescue. Meanwhile, back being trapped in the room, they find they have a deadly gas threat, and are at risk of becoming unconscious. Here we have Cordelia knocked unconscious. During Buffy's attempt at rescue, she finds herself being drugged up and knocked out by some sort of sedative. With the rest of the Scoobies becoming unconscious because of the gas, Angel comes to the rescue. But finally Buffy breaks herself free, saves the day, and knocks the Invisible Girl unconscious, just before 2 FBI agents come in to ship her away. But at this point, it's safe to say that Buffy's the one that knocked out the Invisible Girl, and so therefore she is the one that saves Cordelia. Now, there's only a couple of things that happen in the season finale, but the first surprising thing is Buffy knocking Giles out. Now, the next save comes in the form of Buffy. Whilst Xander and Angel may be on the trail of trying to get to her in time to help, ultimately they don't get in time to actually help beat the Master, so unfortunately they're only there in time just to save Buffy, in which they find her in an unconscious, drowned state. So, with Angel unable to assist in that department, Xander gives Buffy CPR and saves Buffy's life. Meanwhile, while all of that is going down underground, we have Willow and Jenny about to put themselves in harm's way. As it turns out, the Hellmouth is right on top of the library, in which they find themselves outside in the car park surrounded by vampires. Who comes to save them? None other than Cordelia. How about that? Cordelia's turned into quite a little hero. Anyway, just in the nick of time, Cordelia shows up with her car, gets them in. She could have driven away, but she drove inside the building to get them out of harm's way. That counts as a save to me. Well done, Cordelia. Now, finally, for our final save and final damsels, we have Willow, Jenny and Giles in Damsel in Distress, with Buffy coming through to save them. Now, they're all struggling to deal with that plant-like alien gooey demon thingy. And it looks very clear that if it's not for Buffy killing the Master, and that thing left to keep growing and becoming bigger and bigger, that those 3 would have been devoured by that plant-like beast. And they're all in serious danger of that plant gooey demon thingy. And then Buffy saves them by killing the Master, and the gooey thing gets sucked back underneath the ground. Wow. And that is our list for season 1. Now, it is no surprise to see Buffy at the top. 18 saves altogether, and obviously we knew that was going to be the case of Buffy being really high up on this list. And at this stage of seeing how many saves she got in season 1, will this ever get topped? Will anyone ever get close to this number? I very much doubt it at this time. Obviously this will come and change as the season progresses. Now, the damsels. Now, I am quite surprised to see Buffy this high up on the list, as just as much as she is the hero of the show, she is also the biggest damsel that needs saving all the time. But I suppose that goes hand in hand with her being at the front line all the time. Will she stay at the top is the question though, because there are, unlike the hero list, there are others, as you can see, that are quite close, as Willow has come in with 8 saves needed and Xander at 7. Now, for the final list. Who got knocked out the most? Now, someone said that Giles gets knocked out an awful lot in this series now. Looking at this list at the end of season 1, Buffy's got the title for that too. Don't get me wrong, Giles and Xander are in a very close seconds of like how many times someone's been knocked out. So this is very close to knockout list, completely different. It's clearly a three-way race at the moment. Will anyone ever top Buffy? Well, season 2 is twice the size of Buffy, and we will find out later this week. Season 2 might be a lot longer, so I might have to split that up into 2 parts. I don't know yet. Anyway, we will find out in season 2 if anyone ever takes any of Buffy's titles away from her. So, what did you guys think? Is this what you expected to see, or did you expect to see something a bit different? Let me know in the comments below, and we will find out if anyone takes Buffy's 3 titles away from her a couple days later in the next part, which will be season 2. Stay tuned until then. Bye!